Hello, I'm Gina Ross with Keller Williams Realty, and today I'm at Engel, Isley, and Perry Law Office in beautiful downtown Boone, North Carolina. And I'm visiting with Rob Engel. He's a real estate attorney, and I'm going to let Rob introduce himself, and then he's going to take us through the closing process. Go ahead. Take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Gina. My name's Rob Engel. I'm an attorney in Boone. Been up here about 23 years, mostly real estate work, and then do wills and estates and business transactions, some traffic tickets. So, Gina asked me to just go through the closing process and what's involved from the lawyer's perspective. And so I just thought I'd start from the beginning and kind of walk you through and hopefully cover the things that most people are interested in the closing. We are a closing attorney state. Some states close only with title insurance companies, so some people aren't used to that, but actually our title insurance premiums and the total costs are lower in North Carolina than they are in most states because theoretically I think it's because the attorneys are catching mistakes and there are fewer claims. So anyway, it's a good way to do it, even though you might be used to doing it if you're from another state with a title company. We start with a contract, and the realtor usually prepares the contract, sends it to us. We assign a closing agent, paralegal, to handle the file. We open the file, start collecting data. We start with the contract, start making connections with the realtors. If there's a lender, we start working with the lender to set up a date. Usually it takes 30 to 45 days to get approved, and then the appraisal has to be done. Part of the due diligence in North Carolina is if you're borrowing money, you have to get completely approved by the lender, which involves getting an appraisal. And sometimes, depending on how busy people are, the appraisal can take a while. So you have to get completely approved by the lender before the end of the due diligence date, because if you don't, you'll lose your money, any due diligence money, if you can't get the loan and have to cancel after the fact. If a lender's involved, we start communicating with the lender, and we have to do a lot to make the lenders happy. And so that's the primary purpose of the closers, and dealing with the buyers, collecting information, dealing with the realtors, and then trying to make the lenders happy, which is pretty time consuming, as my staff well knows. Again, the due diligence period is usually 3 or 4 weeks, and then the closing a couple of weeks after that. We try to leave a little bit of time between the due diligence period and the closing date, just to allow time to get we don't want to start doing the title work we have to charge people once we do the title work, so we try to wait until after the due diligence period to finish the title work.
So that's just in case the transaction was to terminate,
right?
Then they don't get charged for title work. So,
correct.
Okay.
Correct. We perform the title search. A normal title search in North Carolina is for 30 years. And there's something called the Marketable Title Act that assumes that if you do it for 30 years and it's okay, if something doesn't show up in the chain of title, then it's not that important. So we do have title insurance, and what we do is we do the title work, prepare the title opinion, give it to the title insurer, and then you get title insurance and the attorney's on the hook. So you have two people to go after if there's a mess up. The attorneys never make a mistake, but occasionally somebody does. So the attorney does the title work, we get the title insurance, and then so you can go after the title insurance also, as well as the attorney and the attorney's malpractice insurance. And then
talk a little bit more about the title insurance. So like, what type of things are you looking for, or that you find when you're doing the search?
Well, during the search, we are looking at the normal search. Again, I said 30 years. We try to find prior title insurance. To finish up, we save some money if we can find a prior title insurance. And the contract says we'll try and get the title insurance, and it does save the buyer money if we can find prior title insurance. We list all the exceptions when we're doing the title work. We're looking for easements. We're looking for deeds of trust is a primary thing. If they borrowed money, there's a deed of trust on the property. We look at taxes to make sure that taxes are paid. If they're not paid, they become a lien on the property. We one of the main things we look for are judgments. If you get a judgment against a person in North Carolina, the judgment lasts for 10 years. So that's part of the process. If there's easements, we try to look at everything that affects the property, and we give that on our title opinion. Covenants, restricted covenants, people need to look at their restricted covenants. If they want to have chickens, I had a person call the other day that wouldn't buy the house because the restrictive covenant said no fowls. And so if your heart's desire to have chickens and have eggs, fresh eggs, then you don't want to buy that house because the restrictive covenants control.
And then a big one around here too is short-term rentals. We have to make sure that that's okay in the property that you're purchasing, if that's what you want to do.
Correct. Yeah. And in my neighborhood between Boone and Blowing Rock, you cannot have short-term rentals, and that sometimes does affect the property values. And if you're planning on raising as a second home, making money or helping pay your mortgage, you need to be very careful on that. That's a good point. A lot of associations are trying to change their restrictive covenants, which is tough to do. So the closing agent, the attorneys, we're all communicating with the realtors. HOAs are a big thing. Property owner association, homeowner associations are the same thing. There are association dues in a lot of neighborhoods up here, and it's our duty to check with that association and determine if there's yearly dues, $500, $1,000, $2,000. And in the contract, it says that those will be prorated. Assuming everything's going okay, we're past due diligence, the people still want to buy it, we have made the lender happy, we set a closing date, the loan closing package comes to the closing paralegal, and then they prepare the documents. Sometimes we don't get it until the morning of the closing, and that causes difficulty. We try to put all the settlement statements together, put all the numbers on the transaction, paying off the loans, collecting the fees for the lender, prorating the items like homeowner association between the parties, prorating taxes, and we send the settlement statement out. The buyer gets it, the buyer gets a certified check or wires the money to us for the closing amount. If there's a lender involved, you'll also get something from the lender. They come to closing. On a lender closing, it takes 45 minutes to an hour. On a cash closing, a lot of people don't show up. They just have to sign the settlement statement approving all the numbers, and then we have to get the money. And we can't close, we sign all the papers, and we can't give the keys out or finalize the closing until we have all the lender money, the buyer money. We have to update the title. Let's say we did the title work 2 weeks ahead of time. We have to update to the time when we record, because if somebody did a mortgage or they got a judgment against them in the meantime, that's a lien on the property. So that's on the attorney to double check that. So after we've checked it all again, gotten the money, we record at the courthouse, then we can disperse the money to the seller, and it's theirs. Technically, that's when it happens.
So better to close kind of in the morning, and then more than likely you'll be able to get,
correct,
those keys
correct.
by the afternoon.
We don't close after about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a normal day because we have to wait on the bank. Sometimes it takes an hour or two after closing for the banks to approve what we've done. Used to be in the old days, people would try and close on Friday, not so much anymore because there's so many things that can go wrong. And if it does go wrong, or if we don't get the package from the lender, which is not that uncommon, then we have to postpone it until the next Monday, which causes problems.
Right.
People think they're saving money if they close at the end of the month, and that used to be a common thing, but you're going to pay interest if you're borrowing money from the day you close. So best to work with what's convenient for everybody and do it throughout the week instead of trying to do it on a Friday. Everybody usually likes to take their Friday afternoons off anyway. So anyway, thank you very much. Any other questions?
I don't have any, but we are going to stay tuned. We're going to have another video on something equally as interesting, 1031 exchanges. But thanks for joining us today. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you again. Thank you.